All right. Well, if you've heard anything, been listening to the radio or the news, you've probably heard about this big, beautiful bill. And I feel like every time you say that, you have to use air quotes. The big, beautiful bill, as I,
One big, beautiful bill
yeah, I
act.
feel like that was named by our commander in chief. So there's a lot of stuff that's in it, and so we're not going to dive into all of that because we just don't have the time. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that apply more specifically to real estate, renters, home buyers, some of the things that might be a little bit more advantageous for you to know about if you're looking to purchase a home, or you're just interested in real estate, or if you're a real estate investor, because there might be some things that are in there for you. So this is in no particular order, so I'm just gonna kind of just start going down the list of some of the things that you might want to know about until we run out of time. But to start off with everything, there's a lot of provisions in here that look out for high income individuals, as one might, suspect or not be surprised about. But there's another key provision in the bill that expands to low income housing tax credit for builders who create or rehabilitate rental housing for low and middle income renters. So that is, in layman's terms, if you will, meaning that there is a provision in the bill that if builders are willing to, either rehab buildings or build buildings to, provide housing for low and middle income families, not houses that they can own, houses that they can rent, then, there's there's tax credit for that too. Why the face?
Because it's like, oh, okay, affordable housing, great. Yes, for rent. Oh. Um, we have serial renters. I've talked to a few of them. They're like, I don't want to purchase. I don't want to be responsible for anything. I just want to rent. And I suppose that'll help them, but a good vast majority of renters are only doing so because they can't buy, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, again, with this bill that's making the rich richer and basically the poor poorer, it's really pretty much cutting out the middle class. It's going to help um, investors invest even more and snatch up even more single family homes. But really, at this point, it looks like they're not even interested in doing that. They just want to build houses for rent. Y'all keep y'all single family homes that, we would usually turn into a rental. We'll just build them and take up land and space and just build subdivisions now, build to rent. That's going to become a thing.
I passed by a community today taking my daughter to ballet, and I didn't even realize until I saw the sign where it was like homes available for rent. And I was like, for rent? I didn't even realize this entire community was brand new homes just to rent, nothing to own. And
And
so
that'd be
I'm like,
like 2,000, $2,500 a month.
yeah. And so this bill is going to make it, if they make it easier for builders to get paid, giving them incentives to build homes. And so this is another thing that I think about this. If you are, to your point of making the rich richer and the poor poorer, in this country, most of the wealth lies with homeowners. Homeowners, and this has been based on statistics and research and studies, the median net worth of homeowners is more than 40 times higher than the median net worth of renters.
Mhm.
And so home ownership is where the equity in your home particularly is where a lot of homeowners have their wealth at. One way that a lot of people end up, increasing in their status is through being able to purchase a home and increase in that status. However, by incentivizing builders to build more affordable housing for rent, but not doing anything to subsidize the housing that people can be able to purchase, that in essence is creating, in my opinion, that wealth gap where you've got, okay, we're going to incentivize, give tax breaks for builders to build, homes for rent. But we're not going to make homes ownership more accessible or affordable. We're going to make renting more accessible or affordable, meaning that the owners, the companies, the corporations that really came up big in 2020 when homes were just being bought left and right and people were overpaying or companies were overpaying for homes, they're still going to have a lot of that wealth, a lot of that equity, but now they have more control over this is where the low income housing is, and we're going to build low income housing over here. So if you're low income housing, this is where we put the low. To me, it's just, it's more of a way that, you know, things can be controlled. And I'm not saying that everything is bad in this bill. It mentions a lot about tax breaks, and I'm not going to get into all the individual ones, but there are a lot of tax incentives that are in there as well. This is what I will say about the tax incentives, because there's like, oh, if you make money on tips, you know, the first, you know, 10,000 of that is, you know, tax free. If you make money doing this, the first however much is tax free. If you know, there's a lot of tax breaks that are given there. That only matters if you itemize your deductions when you're doing your taxes. For those of you who don't do your own taxes, or you don't know what that means, basically when you're doing taxes, there are two different ways that a lot of people tend to take those deductions. You can itemize deductions, meaning that you go through and everything that you can deduct from those taxes, line item by line item, i.e. itemizing those deductions, you add all of those up. And then there's what's called a standard deduction. And the standard deduction, and I'm not a tax expert, so definitely, you know, consult your CPA or whoever your tax professional is. But from what I know about it, in doing my own taxes, there's a standard deduction that you can take as well. The standard deduction for the majority of American citizens is what most people take, because it gives them a better tax break or tax incentive rather than itemizing all these deductions. Because if all those itemized deductions don't add up to as much as what you're going to get for the standard deduction, you just take the standard deduction because you're going to save yourself, you know, more in the long run. That itemizing more so with all the tax breaks and everything really comes into play if you make a lot of money, because now you're in that position where it's like you're trying to get everything you can, you know, out of all this money. But if you don't make a ton of money, i.e. if you're not rich, if you're just making, you know, median income, we'll just say, you know, your income's around the area median income range, then, or below the area median income range, then all of the tax breaks aren't really going to benefit you above what you will get for a standard deduction, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. One of the provisions is the state and local tax. The cap was raised on that. So it was raised from 10K to now 40K. And so in certain states, it could mean savings of thousands in annual taxes. And I also love the fact that there's the tax deductions for private mortgage insurance is coming back. They took that out in like 2021, I think. And so that's coming back. So that's nice. But back to the state and local taxes. So you can deduct your state and local tax payments from your federal return, which will likely create a real estate boom, right? However, at the same time, when booms are created, what happens to prices? They go up.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're giving these tax breaks, or, you know, in line with what you were just talking about, it raises the deduction to 40K, it's going to be really good in places like New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, New Jersey, where property taxes are already high. And also the prices are already high. But at the same time, in those same areas, the prices are going to raise even higher because more people are going to be, you know, incentivized to try to purchase. Now, people who are already homeowners, I think it'll be much better for them, which circles right back around to how this makes the wealthy wealthier. And it will make, you know, poor and lower income households or individuals, it'll make it harder for them to purchase if the prices go even higher than they are right now, because the interest rates are high and they're staying high, as well as the prices. But again, you know, the prices have been high because, in certain regards anyway, it's not because the homeowners are greedy, it's because a lot of them are selling and it hasn't even been 3-4 years, so the payoff is still high.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they this bill, it's big, it's a bill. Beautiful. I don't know, you
Beautiful.
know, beauty is in the eye.
Yeah.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
My eyes are, I don't know. I got pretty good vision. I'm just not, but I'll say it's to be determined.
Okay, TBD.
Yeah, to be determined. I mean, as far as the housing, because there's some stuff that will reduce property taxes, like you said, which I'm happy about because I pay property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would reduce how much of that goes toward the school, which maybe that's going to be in the works as well because my kids are homeschooled, and
I doubt that though, because I saw an article the other day that said in Atlanta public schools they are trying to raise the median salary of teachers to 100K
Mm,
in Atlanta public schools. I just saw that article yesterday.
I'm not opposed to that. I think teachers work
They need
hard.
more than that, having to deal with these bad children. When I came here and I
Yeah.
realized my dream of finally teaching in school, and I got to these children, I said I let that dream go with these children that's here in this vicinity. I said, oh my goodness.
I'm not opposed to that at all. Like, I think teachers do a lot. I think
They
that they
deserve
put up
it.
with a lot. If we value education, at least the way that we say we value, educating the next generation,
Right.
then I don't see how you can separate valuing education but devaluing the teachers that are facilitating said education. So, no, I'm not opposed to 6-figure income for teachers either. I mean, I think, maybe we end up with a better quality of educator.
For everybody, yes.
Yeah. I think
the schools and the streets, keep that. Now these commissioners that want 5-figure raises every year, maybe take it away from them, especially if they're not making the schools, the numbers and the ratings and stuff go up.
Mm-hmm.
Crime go down. What are we paying you for? But anyway, keep going, Frederick.
On the housing prices, like you mentioned, the housing prices aren't decreasing. I think that we're not going to see a decrease in housing prices. We're going to have new inventory where the housing prices start out low. And that's one of the things that I have not seen coming from this bill, where it's like, hey, we are providing incentives, or, we're providing subsidies for builders to build low income housing for purchase, not for rent, but for purchase.
Right.
Because that's the only thing I think that's going to drive it down. We're still in a housing shortage. We still have fewer homes on the market than what we need to meet the demand of buyers that are out there, particularly the price point at which those buyers can afford to purchase. And so because of that, we need to have something. And that's the thing I have not come across in this bill, where it's like, we're going to be subsidizing builders so that they can build these, a large amount of homes in the 200,000 range, not these brand new from the 360s and up, because there are a lot of people that can't afford that, but homes that are in that $200,000 range. Those, what we used to call starter homes, where people could purchase a home for $150,000, $200,000, and it was like a nice, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, something that you could, get your foot in the door and at least start building up some equity or whatever. I just don't see home prices dropping, because home prices have actually been stalling right now. Or not home prices, home sales have been stalling right now. There's been a kind of a lull, if you will, in the sale of homes, but prices haven't dropped.
Don't talk about this too long. You're gonna make me depressed, please.
Yeah. It affects us all. We can move on. But I mean, when it comes to the effect that all of this is going to have on housing, overall, if you are a homeowner, your taxes, you might see a little bit of a decrease in your property taxes, which will be good. If you're not a homeowner, even just in your check with, the amount of what you can claim for your deductions, that may be beneficial to you depending upon how much money you make. But if you are, on the lower end of the spectrum, like we mentioned, it's not a ton that's in there for you. There are some cuts to some of the government programs, which I'm not going to get into because I am not a healthcare professional. That is, I will leave that to someone else's lane. But
Well, let me get in the lane just real quick because, yes, it extends tax cuts to the wealthy and it slashes most of the U.S. Social Security net programs. Well, not most, but a lot of them. And so, like one of the people in the articles that you sent said, there's never been a single law in U.S. history that has hurt low-income households more, because these are the largest Medicaid and SNAP cuts in history.
yeah.
And I think that is notable. I don't want to leave that out. I want that to be said. Um, However, this is essentially what was voted in. This is what they wanted.
I don't. Yeah, it's funny. I think it's like on the one side, this is what they wanted. On the other side, I feel like they didn't know what they were getting. And then I feel like there was a third party out there that was like, I know what I don't want. And whatever was fueling the other side of that, I know what I don't want. This is what people ended up getting. Yeah, I mean, this is where we're at. And
So I have a question. Was this whole bill not available to and introduced even while he was like, because he didn't just he signed it into law July the 4th, but in order for that to have happened, it had to have been presented. All of what's in it is and has been public information for a long time, to the point where when he was running against Harris, she made a huge part of her campaign explaining what was in the bill, because she knew people didn't read. People don't read.
Oh, absolutely not.
And he was saying, "Oh no, it's not going." Trump was saying that either he was saying that it wasn't going to be this way, or no, he was just saying that, oh no, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. Or he wasn't really talking about that at all. In his campaign, and he was talking about how people were eating their pets and all these other things that didn't matter. And Harris spent a lot of time saying, no, this is what he's planning. So we had time, we had the ability to read it for ourselves, and then even if we didn't read it, all we had to do was listen to Harris sounding the alarm. All the American people had to do. And I can't tell you how many articles that I have read over the last couple of weeks, Frederick, that have said, this is not what I was expecting. This is not what I was voting for. I'm so disappointed. I regret my decision. I regret my choice. No. Because you can't. I think so many people in this, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care if it offends people or not, because it's the truth. I think so many times people look at skin color, and they may look at even the gender of a person and judge the job that they can do just because they are so in a box. And to do that and to pay attention to those aspects more to your own financial detriment. Because we're not even going to talk about what race of people benefit most from food stamps and housing and things like that. That is of no consequence. We all, every race.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though they try to make it seem like it's just mostly African American, it is not.
Oh no, it's a
every
lot.
race.
Yes.
And so we're all affected, whether you voted for him or not. But I think it's really interesting how the ones that voted for him, it's just been constantly coming up in different news articles, them making comments all over social media about how they regret it now.
Oh wow. So I'll say on that note with race, a lot of because we're a lot of the stuff that's in the bill also is causing for a downsizing of the government, removing funding from a lot of Department of Education, a lot of areas where funding is traditionally gone toward, and then moving funds toward ICE, which is just a short acronym for the immigration control, basically. So on your note with the race and everything, I think race definitely plays a factor. I mean, I think that, and I've just like you've seen videos on people that regret their decision, I've seen videos on the other side of people that are like, we got to do something about immigrants because they're taking over our country and they're da 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 da. And I was actually listening to a broadcast today that was talking about how much immigrants, particularly in California, which is the world's fourth largest economy, not the US, the world. Wow. Like California's economy is bigger than the majority of countries. That's how big California's economy is. And a huge contributing factor to that is immigrants. There is a lot of, benefit that comes from immigrants who come into the California economy or any economy. I use California because that's what the news broadcast was talking about, but provide a lot of benefit and a lot of value and everything. But then, you have a group of people that want to keep things status quo, if you will, how things have always been or how they would like them to be. And so because of that, it's like, oh, we need to fund ICE and we need to, go hard after these illegal immigrants. And, during the campaign, it was all projected to be, these violent criminals that we're going after and everything. But statistics and research even shows the overwhelming majority of immigrants are not violent. Most of the violence comes from American citizens that were born, bred, and raised on American soil, not from people who have immigrated here from other countries. Most of the violent acts, the mass shootings, all of that stuff are from Americans who were born and raised in America, not from, other countries that immigrated here. So there's a lot of
work, take care of their families, they go home.
Exactly.
The vast majority of them.
Exactly. And so because of that, it's like when you actually look at the numbers, you actually look at the research and you actually say, okay, you know what? Based on the numbers, based on the research, it's not immigrants that are causing the trouble that we're having. Oh, they're stealing our jobs. I don't know too many Americans that are like, oh, I lost a job to an. It's like, no, you actually haven't gotten, but whatever.
You don't want to go to no field and harvest no crops. You don't want to go to no hotel and make up no bed. You don't want to go to no construction site and be working in 100-degree weather.
It's like there's no jobs that you're stealing. There's no, there's no. There is more of a benefit that comes from it than this whole narrative of, violent criminals stealing jobs, whatever. It's like, I think it gets to the point to where it's like whatever story fits the narrative is what people want to go after, because they're like, oh, this story is what I can put out there. And then, you're going to have a base of people that agree with your prejudice, views that you hold, and they'll support you. And you're like, yeah, see, because they're with me. They understand it. And so it's ludicrous, in my opinion. It's crazy. I'll just come up with a story, violent criminals, but they're not violent criminals. Most violent criminals actually look like someone that you might keep in your inner circle. They might look like someone that you would see in the mirror.
I'm telling you, baby, they don't preach.
They don't look like, the people that you might be targeting that you think are ruining the country, which is not the case. But one thing I will say before I wrap it up, I was listening to Dr. Hart Ramsey, who you put me on, because man, we bringing it. But in any case,
Which one did you listen to?
this past Sunday.
Oh my gosh, wasn't it so
Yeah,
good? And his Bible study on Tuesday was good too. So see, check that out if you can.
yeah.
Set me free, honey. So what did you get from it? I'm
So
excited to hear this.
it was the whole premise of us operating out of fear. And I never looked at it from that perspective. But it totally has been something that has made things worse for Americans, has made things worse just as a whole with people operating out of fear. This whole thing of, you cause something to be just because you're operating out of fear of that thing happening. And what was mentioned, or what he mentioned rather, was, or one of the things that were mentioned was the Great Depression of 1929. People know the 1930s, when you had the Great Depression. And people are like, oh, times were really bad and everything. Is like, well, actually what it was it was a recession. Just like the country goes through recessions at the time, throughout, from time to time, the country goes in recessions. But there was such a fear that the banks were going to run out of money and they weren't going to be able to keep themselves open and operate, that it was the biggest run on the bank that, this country had ever seen. Everyone ran to the bank, pulled all their money out, or pulled what they could pull out. Thousands and thousands of banks had to close their doors because they had no money, all because people operated out of a fear. They were scared of what was going to happen, and that fear drove them to act in a certain way, in a similar way that we see with the stock market. People get wind of a news story of something happening, or a bill that's passed that's going to affect some industry, and they're like, oh, that we're scared that that's going to cause this thing to drop. And so they go and they sell all their stock. Well, everybody operating out of that fear causes the stock to drop, because now everybody's fearful that it would happen. But if people weren't operating out of the fear and they just left their money there, you wouldn't have had the drop. So it was just that whole premise of, us operating out of fear is actually what tends to cause things to be worse than what they actually would have been if we would have just, continued keeping forward or moving forward as usual. I see a lot of that when it comes to immigration, and we're gonna put so much money into immigration control, and we're gonna put so much money. It's this fear that whoever the powers are that be feel like they're gonna lose their country, because they're like, oh, we're immigrant population is increasing and American birth rate is decreasing, and now the government's like, oh, we're gonna pay $1,000 to put an account for everyone that has a kid. It's like over the next 5 years or whatever, 4 or 5 years, it's like $1,000 to go in an account, and then the parents can put up to 5,000 or add 5,000 to it or whatever. But it's this fear thing of, oh, immigrants are coming here in droves, and Americans' birth rate is declining, so we're not having as many babies, and we're going to lose our country to immigrants, and we're all going to be speaking Spanish, and whatever it is. And it's like, why does that scare you? One, why does that scare you? But you can just see what's happening with, it's like, now we're incentivizing people to have babies by paying money, which, first of all, if you know what the cost is of having a kid, not
that
alone,
$1,000 gonna be gone just in diapers in the first 4 months of the baby life. Okay.
Exactly. If you really want to incentivize, pay for the first 5 years. Everything for the first 5 years. Pay for that. But it's like, it's people are operating out of fear. And I was like, you would be better off realizing the value that someone who might not look like you is bringing into the country, or bringing into, just the society or the area, rather than, people just operating out of something that in totality they don't fully understand, but they just know how they would like things to be.
That's the thing. We fear what we don't understand.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to seek to understand it, we fear what we don't understand. But it's one of those things, though, that they're just going to have to see it to understand. Mm-hmm. And people, when they are afraid, they make up all sorts of scenarios in their mind. And it's the fact that they don't have any control over their mind and over their thoughts. They just let them run rampant. They let their thoughts run amok, thinking about what the future could be, thinking about what's going to happen. And most of the time there's no basis in reality. The majority of the fears that we have as people are not based in reality, but we sit there and we psych ourselves out thinking of all these different scenarios that could happen. And then when we get to the end of the journey, the end of the trial, 9 times out of 10, none of those things that you thought were going to happen ever happen. But just like the book of Job says, the thing I greatly feared has come upon me. And, the thing that I wished would not happen has happened. So sometimes we can fear something so much that it actually does happen because we focus so much energy into it and it ends up manifesting. It's the same way. Like if I put a whole bunch of energy into making sure I'm financially independent and strong strong physically, going to the gym or whatever I put my energy into most is what's going to manifest. But oftentimes the worst doesn't have to happen, like you just said. However, I liken this whole scenario to, I was telling you that there's a scripture in this is actually what's happening now has happened before, and it happened in the Bible days. This exact same scenario. I would liken the players in this entire story to the biblical account in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 11. At this point in time, Samuel had been the people's judge for a minute. But for whatever reason, they wanted a king. They wanted to be like other nations. And they began, he and his sons were judging Israel for quite some time. But then they said, you know what, we want a king. We want to be like other nations. And Samuel was very hurt at this request. And he went to God and he said, hey, they're asking for a king. And God said, don't worry, because it's not you that they're rejecting. It's me. And so Samuel was God's prophet. He was God's mouthpiece. First Samuel, in the beginning chapters of the book, it tells you how visions and hearing from God was very rare in those days. So the fact that Samuel actually audibly heard God calling him, and he was one of God's prophets, like there was no denying what God was saying, and there was no denying that God was speaking to him. He was very accurate. He was very respected throughout Israel. And the Bible actually says throughout all of Israel, no one looked at Samuel and didn't revere him as a prophet. Like that's how high a ranking of a prophet that he was and how much he heard from God. So he told the children of Israel, he said, okay, God said, go ahead and give them what they're asking for. And he said, okay, well, this is what your king will do. He's going to put your sons to war. He's going to make your daughters servants. He's going to take the money that you use and that you your fields and your vineyards, your crops. He's going to take it for himself, your taxes, all of that. He told them. He warned them, and they said, "All right, we hear you. We still want a king. Give us our king." He said, "Okay." And then, of course, all those things ended up happening, and they were in captivity once again, and then they ended up crying out to God for him to deliver them and all of these things. And so I just find that interesting because I look at Kamala Harris as Samuel, who warned, this is what your king will do. I look at the American people as the people of Israel. And I think what was so funny, because God revealed this to me probably about a month ago, just the connection. But what was so funny, last month when they had those No Kings protests against this current administration, and it was called No Kings protest. And I was like, who are they saying that they don't want to be king or whatever? Like, we don't have kings in the U.S. And they were like, well, it's because of Trump. And so I said, well, that's very interesting. You can't say that you don't want him now, because that's exactly what you wanted. You got what you asked for, and you were told what would happen. And now you want to regret, and now you want to cry, and now you want to cry out. At this point, we can only hope for the Lord's mercy. There's no more favor. We can only hope for the Lord's mercy, because when a person shows you their character and you decide to still continue on with it anyway, it is what it is. When
Yeah.
you decide to continue, you know, desiring to go in that direction, no matter what it is, no matter that you're shown a different way or something that could be changed and you don't want it, then you know, you have to accept the consequences at this point. So
Yeah. And the last thing I'll add on to that is when I'm reading through the Bible, it's like at least, you know, time and time again, Israel fell away from God, but then they prayed and returned.
mm-hmm.
I feel like we are not a nation that will reach that point of return. I feel like we look so much to everything else other than looking, you know, up, looking to God. And so pray often, because you know what, revival can happen anywhere.
Yes.
God can work miracles, you know, however he sees fit. He sets up kingdoms and nations. He tears them down. He knows how to protect his own.
Yeah.
So I guess that would really be my you know, summary and conclusion of everything, because there's a lot of stuff in the bill. None of it, any of us, either on this podcast or listening to it, have any ability to be able to change.
Not at this point.
But what we can do is, you know what, we can continue to pray, and there's one who knows the end from the beginning. He knows how this whole thing's going to play out.
That's
And
right.
as long as we stay close to him and continue listening to, and him being God, just so we're clear, there ain't no other him that I'm discussing.
Right.
But as long as we stay close to God and we're listening to, you know, where he's telling us to go and what he's wanting us to do, you know, he's going to help you navigate throughout this whole thing, wherever it ends up going. You know, I'm not sitting around waiting on the country to get better. I'm moving as I feel led by the Spirit to move. And so that's
Amen.
kind of how I view the whole, everything that's happening right now, including this bill. So
Yeah. Faith is going to be the thing that keeps us afloat.
mm-hmm.
Because one of the best promises that we as believers can cling to in times like this is that the righteous will never be forsaken,
Mm-hmm.
nor will their seed ever be begging for bread.
Yeah.
He's not going to let certain of us drown, fall, be put to shame, no matter how bad things get.
Mm-hmm.
We have the assurance that he will be looking out for us. So if you're not close to God, get close. If you've been curious about him or wondering about him, now's the time to find out all you can about him.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, things will likely get quite a bit worse before it, or if they ever get better. But in him we have a blessed hope. So yeah.
Well, that's a good way to wrap it up. So yeah, that's what we have for you. Hopefully it's been, you know, at least eye-opening, and you can realize that, you know what, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is not with the country, it's with God. And so yeah, make sure you tune in on Friday, every Friday, when we're dropping a new episode. And then tune in on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Home Finance Hacks, right here on YouTube. So till next time, take care, be blessed, and we'll see you next week.